The first time he said my name, it was like someone had taken a hammer to the glass walls I didn't even know I had built. The second time, I realized I was already falling and there was nothing in the world I could do to stop it. I met Adrian Cole on the coldest morning of October in New York. The wind coming off the Hudson felt like it could peel the skin right off your bones, and my coffee had already gone lukewarm in the 5 minutes I'd been outside. I was hurrying to the subway when a voice, low and calm, cut through the chaos. "You dropped this," he said, holding out my sketchbook, one I'd been carrying since college. Full of half-finished portraits and dreams I wasn't ready to show the world. I took it, mumbled thanks, and should have walked away. But something in his gaze, steady, green like wet pine, made me linger. He was too put together for someone catching the same miserable morning train. Pressed coat, leather gloves, the faint scent of cedar and something darker. "Evan," he said, like he'd already known me, like my name belonged in his mouth. I didn't ask how he knew it. I just stood there, watching the ghost of a smile curve at the edges of his lips, before the train came and we were both swallowed by the crowd. Adrian Cole wasn't supposed to matter. He was older, richer, the kind of man whose life was so far removed from mine that our worlds should have collided once and then spun apart forever. But he kept showing up. On the train, at the cafe near my apartment. Once, even at the park where I went to draw on weekends. And each time, he'd say my name like it was something worth remembering. I found out he was a corporate lawyer, the kind who closed million-dollar deals before lunch. He found out I was an art teacher scraping by on a salary that barely covered rent. He didn't seem to care. If anything, my stubborn refusal to let him buy me things made him more interested. But interest can be dangerous. One night, over wine in his apartment, I asked why he kept seeking me out. The city glittered behind him through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Because," he said, "every time I say your name, you look at me like you're hearing it for the first time." The problem was, I wasn't the only one hearing my name. Rumors started, people whispering about how a man like Adrian didn't just date anyone. That maybe I was a project, a distraction, something temporary. I tried to brush it off, but it gnawed at me, especially when he got quiet about his past. One evening, I followed him after he said he had a meeting. It wasn't my proudest moment, but my heart was tangled in a knot I couldn't untie. I saw him in a dimly lit restaurant, sitting across from a man I didn't know. They leaned close, laughing over wine, the kind of laugh he'd once shared with me. I left before dessert. I didn't answer his calls for a week. When he finally showed up at my door, he didn't ask why. He just looked at me with something like regret in his eyes. "It wasn't what you think," he said. "I don't know what I think anymore," I told him. Winter came early that year. We drifted, not quite apart, but no longer in sync. I missed him, but I hated myself for missing him. Then my father got sick. The kind of sick you don't come back from. Adrian found out how. I still don't know, and showed up at the hospital with coffee, sandwiches, and a quiet presence that didn't demand anything from me. He was there when my father passed, sitting in the corner of the room like he belonged there. It was in that sterile hospital air, heavy with the scent of antiseptic and grief, that I realized something. Love isn't about the days when it's easy. It's about the days when it's not. We tried again, slowly, carefully. On New Year's Eve, we stood on the Brooklyn Bridge as fireworks exploded over the East River. The cold bit at our skin, but his hand was warm in mine. "Evan," he said, pulling me closer. "Every time I call your name, I feel like I'm home." The city roared around us, but for a moment, time stopped. Just like it always did when he said my name. Months passed. We fought sometimes. We made up always. I learned that the man in the restaurant had been his estranged brother, back in town after years of silence. He learned that I still sketched him when he wasn't looking, pages and pages of him in my notebook. Spring arrived in bursts of green and gold. One afternoon, as we wandered through Central Park, he stopped by the lake and took both my hands. "You once told me you didn't know what you thought about us," he said. "Do you know now?" I looked at him, the man who had been my storm and my shelter, who had seen me at my weakest and still called my name like it meant something. "Yes," I said. "I think." I'm not alone in this. He smiled, and the world tilted just enough for me to realize it had always been moving toward this moment. We still take the train together sometimes. He still says my name like it's the only one he'll ever need to remember. And every single time, time stops. Because love, I've learned, isn't measured in grand gestures or perfect days. It's in the quiet moments, the brush of his hand against mine, the way he looks at me when he thinks I'm not watching, the unshakable truth that in this messy, beautiful, impossible world, I am not alone. And I never will be. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.